AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show, hour number 2 here today. Good to be with you. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Democrat of the day. We head up to 11A, which is just to the west of Duluth, Cloquet area. It's just a wonderful area. I've been up there quite a bit. Joining us right now is Pete Radosevich. He is running for House District 11A for the DFL. Kind enough today to join us to talk about his campaign. Pete, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
I am in your district on a regular basis whenever I drive up to my family cabin up by Virginia, and I stop in your district all the time because Gordy's is just that good. Is Gordy's still open right now?
It's got another week or so left, but I would suggest what you do next time is make a little detour out to Esco and have some pizza at that little pizza restaurant. It's great.
Oh, I know that I've heard about that one too. People have said that that's a good one there. You're gonna get mad at me. I used to stop at the Subway. I mean, what was I doing? What was I doing?
Well, Subway's good too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Sure it is. It's like a Hardee's in Mankato, but it's got its things. But you do have some gems up there. First of all, if we can, for 11A, how did it get redistricted after the last census here? How did it change?
It changed very little. The real redistricting here happened about 10 years ago, when we sort of consolidated all of Carleton County into one district. And that's what really counts. So we've had a couple of townships in Pine County. So when you're driving north on 35, you hit Sturgeon Lake and JJ's Bottle Shop there. And that's part of our district. And then we've got the Fond du Lac Band has a reservation here in Carleton County, and a couple of townships that include the reservation that are actually in St. Louis County. They're included in 11A too. It's one of the few districts that really makes sense. So we got a guy who, like me, who is going to be representing Carleton County and Cloquet and the Fond du Lac Reservation, Moose Lake and Sturgeon Lake. We're all sort of in this game together. We're not really splitting our interests between Duluth and some other cities. So, yeah, it's a great district.
Well, and I think you just said it perfectly. It's a sign that the Duluth community is growing, because it's to a point, it's become much more like a metro area district, where it is kind of, they have a few that are a little weird, but most of them are kind of, because they're kind of symmetric. They have to be around the metro. Yours is much more symmetric, and it's a great community too. I mean, everyone, if you go north, you go through it, Sturgeon Lake, Moose Lake, heading up towards Cloquet. I mean, it's right up to that border there. It's a one that a lot of people go to. I know you got, tourism business is a big deal there. It's pretty country up that way. So, it makes sense as Duluth grows, that district gets more consolidated and, as you said, makes sense.
It does make sense. And Cloquet is known as the city of wood industries. So we've got a big paper mill here. Sappi makes paper and pulp here. We've got a company called USG that makes ceiling tile. And then for the longest time, up until a couple of years ago, Cloquet had the only matchstick factory in the entire nation. We made matchsticks right here in Cloquet. When you struck that match on your zipper to start a fire, that was made in Cloquet, Minnesota, right down the street from my house.
What prompted you, Pete, here? Let me ask that question. Why are we running here for 11A?
So that's a good question. So I first moved up to Cloquet about 23 years ago or so to practice law. I'm a lawyer. It's what I do for a living. And I quickly got involved into the community, and I took over this guy's cable access TV show. It's called Harry's Gang. Harry went into the nursing home and then passed away, and he asked me to continue doing this show. And what Harry's Gang is, it's a program with 2 conservatives and 2 liberals, and we discuss the issues of the day, and I'm the moderator. I've been doing it for 20-some-odd years, and it's a great program. It's so much fun, and the people that come on the program are usually passionate about their issues. But the beauty of Harry's Gang, and I think this really speaks to the way I'm going to represent people in the legislature, is first of all, the show isn't about Pete Radosevich. Harry's Gang is really about what's going on in the community. And then the second thing is that there's no shouting. Anyone who's seen Harry's Gang, and it's a pretty popular program in these parts, anyone who's seen Harry's Gang knows that I don't allow shouting, I don't allow vitriol, I don't allow discussion of the issues, and occasionally we disagree. We have a healthy discussion of the issues, and occasionally we disagree. It's beautiful. It's exactly what a good political discussion should be. You should be able to sit around the fire and have a conversation with your Republican friends, have a couple of beers maybe, and enjoy your evening. And that's what Harry's Gang is like. And that's what I'm like. That's my style. That's what I do when I'm working within the community, whether I'm practicing law or whether I'm hosting Harry's Gang or writing my award-winning newspaper column in the Pine Knot News. That's what Pete Radosevich does, and that's what I'll do in the legislature if I'm elected.
So I'm going to ask you this just because of your own personal experience. I have conversations with conservatives too all the time, and there's never the vitriol of this. How do you get a conservative to jettison the memes, the snarkiness, the brashness, the arrogance that is exposed on social media? Because that's where people do, they get out there and it's the anonymity, it's not the real world. How do you broach that subject and have a decent discussion with someone when most of the time, we're getting a front row seat with this with Matt Burke, the lieutenant governor candidate. He just doesn't know how to get away from the lunacy of online, extremism. How do you have that conversation with someone and build that so you can actually solve problems?
Well, I've got a theory about that, and that is that I discussed this with Senator Amy Klobuchar once a few years ago, and she agreed, and she told me a story about it as well. What we had in the old days was politicians would come back from St. Paul or Washington, and they'd stomp around their district, and they'd talk about how nothing got done because of the other side. And then they'd go back to St. Paul, or they'd go back to Washington, and they'd work together and get things done. And what happened after years of doing that is that people started to believe that you were supposed to hate the other side. And pretty soon, people who got elected into office believed that the only way they could legislate was by fighting the other side and sticking their heels in the dirt and not getting anything done. They took that as a badge of honor. I remember somebody telling me that when they were first in the legislature in St. Paul, it was at the Tea Party, and the people were proud that they had no legislative experience, no elected experience, and that they wouldn't budge on any issue. And they were proud of that. And I'm thinking, well, that's not what a good leader does. A good leader listens, pays attention, compromises, and tries to get something done. So my theory on this, and it's been proven, you ask any lawyer that I've dealt with in the Duluth-Cloquet area over the last 23 years I've practiced law up in Cloquet, they will tell you that I am willing to listen and I'm willing to figure out a solution to the problems. And if we get more politicians who are there to represent the people they were elected to represent rather than representing the extremists in the parties, eventually we'll get back to that. And I think it'd be a good start with Pete Radosevich, frankly. If I get into the House, I think I can show that we will get things done by cooperating with the other side in areas that we're supposed to cooperate, and that we stay firm on the issues that we should stay firm on. It works. I've done it.
Well, and the thing which I find to be interesting about that is that you get on the one side. I mean, really, I don't know of any Democrat, any DFLer in the state House or Senate who basically it's my way or the highway. They just don't. They're very passionate about some things, but what you've got on the right now is this kind of mentality of I would rather have the government shut down, the entire system crash, than cave. That the only idea of compromise for them is that we'll allow the Democrats to be in the room when we vote on something, and that's it. And I agree with you. I think that if you go back to that, to a point, I keep hoping that some of these extremists on the far right will see that, hey, there is a benefit to you, your district or this, whatever it's a road construction or healthcare or education spending that will help your community. You kind of hope they come to see the light. But you're right. I mean, it is a difficult world when you do have, especially on that right now, this element which is compromises for the weak and, take no prisoners. And that's not how that's this garbage legislation. You'll never be able to get anything done because, frankly, you're never going to win enough people to be able to push what you want to anyway. So
exactly.
I find
my predecessor, Mike Sundin, who's retiring, hopefully he's my predecessor. He said when I was talking to him about this about a year or two ago, and he said, "Oh, sure, he introduced the bill. Anybody can introduce a bill. Did it go anywhere? Is the measure of success. Did it go anywhere?" And I thought, well, that's interesting because there's no sense in filing. I'm a lawyer. There's no sense in filing a lawsuit isn't going to get anywhere. The other side is just as smart as we are, at least in the legal world. They're not going to bow over because I'm suing somebody and say, oh, no, the great Pete Radosevich is on this case. I better settle this quickly. It doesn't work that way. And the same is true in the legislature. So I think it's a waste of time to be introducing bills that we know aren't going to pass. The 130,000 times the GOP introduced legislation in Washington to abandon Obamacare. They knew it wasn't going to pass. It was just for show. It was a waste of time. And it did a disservice to the people who really wanted to get some work done. So I'm convinced that if we can get moderate, no, maybe not necessarily moderate, but reasonable people into the legislature on both sides, we will start getting things done. And then those people who shout on the outside they'll be laughing stocks. Nobody will pay attention to them. You know who gets a lot of work done in the legislature, in Congress? AOC. You know who doesn't get any work done? What's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene. She doesn't get anything done.
Oh.
But boy, she's loud, isn't she?
You know, Sasquatch. Yeah, she's a hoot. You're exactly right, and
but she doesn't get anything done, and that's what a representative is supposed to do. I can promise you, I'm going to get things done when I get elected to the House. I'm going to get things done for Carleton County, and I'm going to get things done for our state, and that's what I'm going to do. And everybody up here believes that. Now, the problem, of course, is that the other guy running for the seat, the Republican, he's a Tea Party, Trump-style Republican, and a nice guy. I've known him for years. I've had him on my TV show. I like the guy. I enjoy talking with him. But when he gets into office, he's going to be advocating for Trump-style politics, Tea Party-style politics. He doesn't really understand the district very well, and he has a lot of money behind him, lots and lots of money behind him. Which is also a shame.
Well, and we'll get to that here in a second because that's a seat they're targeting because they desperately have got to pick up seats. I've seen the map. It actually favors the DFL, and so the Republicans to basically be able to pick up, they got to focus on specific seats. Yours is one of them. Let's talk a little bit about some of your policies here. And once again, Pete Radosevich is joining us, 11A Democrat of the Day. I will bring up you're endorsed by the Minnesota Nurses Association. They just had the 3-day strike here. Talk a little bit about that, because my mentality is clearly, especially after the strains of coronavirus, the pandemic. We've got to get better with the benefits and the pay because we put those nurses through the absolute freaking ringer the last 2 years.
Don't we though?
Oh yeah. Oh
my. Well, we have a hospital here in Cloquet, Community Memorial Hospital, which is a nonprofit community-oriented hospital that is independent. It's not part of the big Essentias or what do you guys have down there, Fairview. It's not. It's independent. And we also have another hospital that was independent in Moose Lake. And that hospital got swallowed up by Essentia a couple of years ago. And Essentia made all these promises to the nurses. They made all these promises. Let us take you over and you'll have all these great things, the benefits that come with being with a big corporate-style hospital, all these great things for you and your community. And that was over 2 years ago. And you know how many of those things have come to pass? I'll let you guess, Matt.
0?
None. Yeah. None of them. And it's a problem. And so I stand with the nurses, especially in Moose Lake, because they got screwed. And these are people who are dedicated to their jobs. They go to work every day wanting to do good with their lives. And they should be compensated correctly. But when I talk to the nurses on the picket lines, and I talk to the nurses in my area who work at both the Cloquet Hospital and the big corporate hospital in Moose Lake, and they are more concerned about patients and staffing than they are about their own income. They are more concerned. I would say that the union leadership, which I think is wise for them, is still pushing to make sure that nurses are compensated correctly and fairly. But the real issue for these people, the real issue is that they don't believe they can do their job adequately at the low staffing levels they're forced to do them at. Mm-hmm. And they're getting burned out and patient care is going down. And so for that reason, I stand with the nurses, especially the ones in Moose Lake. I wish them all the best. I predicted the strike was going to last one day before the big corporate the big corporate hospital, Essentia, would understand how valuable they are, and I was wrong. It lasted 3 days. They didn't strike in Moose Lake, by the way. They called it off at the last minute. But I do think that the big corporate entities, which are important too, I like the fact that we've got well-funded hospitals out there. They should share some of that funding with the nurses who do the actual work.
And I should mention Moose Lake, they did not, even though they didn't strike, that had an informational picket line there that gave out information on this because they were standing with the teachers. Mm-hmm. It was more just they wanted to make sure that the health care coverage was there. I also want to bring up something which I do love. I mean, it's about time the rest of the country figures out the economically fiscal, responsible political party is the DFL. It's the Democrats.
And it has been for a long
time. It is, and this idea that the Republicans are fiscally conservative. My God, they can't waste money fast enough, and they don't give anything in return. One of the things about the DFL and I like is that it's responsible spending, but it's to get benefits to the people. And so when you do the spending, when we've got Walz wants to do his Walz bucks to give money back to the people, but the reality is when we do have to do spending, we do make sure that the citizens of Minnesota get a benefit from that.
Exactly. Matt, you didn't bring up the abortion issue, but I would like to, if you don't mind.
Please, go right ahead. By all means, please.
We know. So I'm Catholic. I don't like abortion. I wish we never had abortion, but I don't believe that as a legislator I can go into the House of Representatives and pass laws that impose my religious beliefs on other people. I think that's wrong. I will not do it. But what fascinates me about this particular issue is that we know, statistically, that when the Democrats are in power, the policies that we embrace, good, solid education, good access to health care, things as trivial that you would think when you compare it to abortion as transportation, when we make life better for people, the abortion rates go way, way down. And so if you truly are opposed to abortions and you want to see it happen fewer and fewer in Minnesota, vote for the Democrats, because what we spend our time working on is making people's lives better. It makes the need go down. It's statistically accurate. But what we have now is the party of small government, the Republicans, shouting very loudly that we want the government to be involved in people's personal lives and personal health care decisions. And that's supposedly the party of small government. And if they want to be fiscally conservative, we would understand that good democratic policies also keep people out of welfare, keeps them off out of the prisons and in the criminal justice system. It's been proven democratic policies are good for the people and good for the country. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, and it's the Republican Party, the party of supposed personal freedom, can't regulate your freedoms fast enough, and that is a reality. And one of the things I want to just ask you about 11A, from what you've seen up there, I mean, there's been a lot of talk, 538 doing national numbers, looking around. There has been a definitive swing towards the DFL, towards the Democrats nationwide because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Have you seen that out there, that people are angry? It's that, I might not be for abortion, but don't come and tell me what I can and cannot do in my own personal life?
As a matter of fact, I have, and I'm a middle-aged man. I'm in my late 50s now. I'm 58 years old. I've got an 8-year-old daughter, though, by the way, so I must be doing something right. But what I've noticed is I'm talking to men between my age and, say, 70, and these are generally conservative men, just solid middle-class rural men, and they believe in things like no gun control, and they generally support the Republican platform. And the number of these people who have come up to me when I'm campaigning and door knocking and say, this is what they say, Matt. They say, I don't think the government's got any right to make those decisions for women. That's what they're saying. And what's fascinating to me is that for many, many years, these people would come out as saying that they are pro-life, because they are pro-life. But when it comes right down to it, the government taking away rights from people, they are opposed to it. And I was pleased but shocked. I was amazed at how many men, my age and older, are suddenly offended that the government is taking these rights away from people. Mm-hmm. It's great. It's fantastic.
Well, and if just 5 or 10% of them do, it's going to be, you're going to see this echo across the state. And I think that that's where it's at, because the reality is this. You said it earlier. They try to play these games with, like, repealing the Affordable Care Act, that sort of thing. They never. They had no intention of doing it because they know it'd create more problems. They are the dog that caught the car, and they don't know what to do with it with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And the reality is they're taking away people's rights. And they, as they giddily enjoyed that, they realized people don't like their rights getting taken away. And whether that's gay marriage or interracial marriage or the right to buy contraception or a woman's right to choose her own health care for her own body, these are rights we've been used to, and taking them away, that's not a winning strategy. So I'm hoping that resonates for you up in 11A.
I agree. When Minnesota is smarter than that. Minnesota understands people's personal liberties. We understand that. And when the gay marriage laws and the gay marriage amendments that went through the country 5, 6, 8 years ago, however long it's been, and they were getting passed everywhere. And when it came to Minnesota, I was telling everyone on my TV show, every single week I said, it's never going to fly here in Minnesota. It's never going to fly. People in Minnesota are smart enough to understand that this is a right. This is the government right. Their religious beliefs on whether gays should marry or not has nothing to do with the government. And I was right. That's exactly what happened. And I think the same thing is happening here. I'm seeing that repeated on that other hot button issue involving reproductive rights, is that when we start taking people's rights away, or when we start forcing our religious beliefs on the entire people, we're not going to stand for that.
Pete
Not in the government, we're not.
Pete Radosevich is House District 11A. This is Cloquet. Now, Pete, here's the point where I tell everyone, all right, what are you doing to make sure the Democrats hold the Minnesota House, Minnesota Senate, win all the statewide races? What are you doing to do that? A really easy thing for you to do is to go out and donate to Pete's campaign in 11A, or even better yet, you got a week left before Gordy's closes, head on up there and go and door knock for him, volunteer for his campaign, and help him out, because the reality is he door knocks every house in that district, he will win. It's just that simple. It's simple math.
I agree.
It's just simple math. So, Pete, if people want to find out how they can donate, how they can volunteer, how do they get in touch with your campaign?
Well, you can go to Pete Radosevich for House11A.com. And that's got my campaign information on there. But I've got to step back a second. Gordy's is only open for another week. But if you come up and door knock with me, and you come up on a Friday or a Saturday, I'll take you out to Eskimo Pizza Pies in Esco, to Mike's Cafe, and buy you some of the best pizza you've ever had.
Mike's Cafe in Esco. All right, I'm writing this down. When I do come up there next time, I might come up there in October. But if I do come up there, I'm going to take you up on this. I'm going to head on out there with you.
Yeah, give me a call.
I will. Pete Radosevich, once again, 11A. I'll put the link out there for his website. Get up there and help them.
That'd be great.
If you're in a safe DFL seat, that's great. Help out your local DFLer. Don't take anything for granted. But get up to 11A, and we need to hold that seat for the DFL and keep the majorities in the House, as well as pick up that Senate. Pete, an absolute pleasure chatting with you, my friend. Thank you very much. All my best.
Vice versa, and to you too.
All right, take care. Pete Radosevich is a Democrat of the Day, House District 11A. We'll take a break. Come on back. Matt McNeil Show on AM 950.